En even foto's maken. Are you ready?
Yep. I have to say something about the
Yeah, so
code of conduct.
Yeah, exactly. So I will do the first 1 or 2 slides. Great. Great attendance, to be honest. We were not really sure what to expect tonight. Obviously, the weather came around the corner. There's a lot of you who come from in and around Amsterdam, so obviously that's great. I think the storm is going around us. We're very excited to host this meetup with you. We're going to introduce the speakers in a second. But this is the first in-person meetup that we organize here in our Data office. Hopefully it's going to be the first of many. 2-3 months maybe, so keep an eye on that. Hopefully we can do more of these. For this first edition, we decided to work with Alessandro and William from the CNCF community. Obviously you're part of that, so that's also how you're going to engage with the meetup, or at least a lot of you. Together, under you, there is already data, ask questions, whatever you like. For now, without further ado, I'm just going to click through the agenda. We started quite on time, so food and drinks have been served. I hope your bellies are full and you're ready to engage with us. We do a short kick-off. We have some lightning talks, so that's just general related topics that we want you guys to know of. Then we start with using Observability for metrics, which will be hosted by Pablo and Dinesh, who's calling in from New York. Pablo is here with us to showcase what we do internally as an engineering company on OpenTelemetry. We have a break, and then we have the wonderful guys from Picnic joining for their observability journey. And then more time for drinks, so that's going to be great. Alessandro, can I ask you to come out and present your slides? You want this? Yeah. And you want this? I want everything. You want everything. Nothing changed.
Alright. Hey, thank you for coming. That's a great turnout in the time of storm, so we are very glad we start planning this summer, right? So
correct.
Yes, so finally we are here. Just some information for the record. So these are our roles. We are the enforcer of the code of conduct. So if you have any problem, you just come to me, Tim, William, or Leon. Congratulations to William, who just made CNCF ambassador. Thank you, Datadog, of course. So please introduce Datadog and all these amazing observability things. There is a code of conduct with the same code of conduct of the CNCF events. So please be nice, don't harass people. You got a problem, just come to talk to us. So it's a safe space. We just talk about technology. We don't do anything weird with that, of course. What else? So next in line. So who is going to Chicago? I'm going, like me, if the storm allows me to travel. But definitely we're going to do like a debrief when we're back. I'm going to bring a lot of sweats from Chicago and we're going to distribute it. By the way, we are organizing, so we are taking a break in December because we're organizing KCD Utrecht. It's 20% discount if you like. We have a few tickets left. We have a lot of tickets left because, of course, take your time to buy it. Don't worry, but it's going to be awesome.
No, don't take your time. Buy it now, please. Take the ticket discount.
Yes. Today we finalized the list of speakers. There are also speakers, trust me. Thanks, Sevi. Sevi is also organizing this. Very cool. Next event, if you are in town in a couple of weeks, this also I've also organized this platform engineering. We're going to talk about also Kubernetes, of course. So we are a network of
throw it. Just throw it. Just throw it.
Who wants Kubernetes gloves? This is Lego. Mini Lego. Finally, Cloud Native rejects original t-shirt from Amsterdam. The lady over there. Yeah, come pick it up.
You need a gun.
Yes. But I have more swags, so if you want some more, you can come to me. I'll find and I'll bring some more from Chicago. So, well, that's it then.
Is it?
Tim? Yep. You want to introduce the other? Thank you, Tim.
Give up on me already?
Yes.
Yes, good. So if you want to get in touch, of course, we have Slack channels or send us an email, and or come talk to us.
Great, thank you, Alessandro. So, some outdoors or at least guidance because you're here in our office. Let's have some fun, be engaging. That's my main message. Food and drinks provided by Dayton. Feel free to grab whatever you want. The fridges are over there. Again, we're getting a resupply of beers because you guys are really, really thirsty. So we'll make sure there's some more later. Recycling, sorting, waste bins can be found all around here. Toilets, for you who haven't been, they can be found upstairs. Just go up the stairs, it should be straight in front of you. And smoking outside in front of the office. There's a nice door to a patio, but they should not be operating. So just feel free to go outside. Then our speakers for today. Again, I already said picnic. We have Philip and our kids speaking later. So thank you guys again for joining us. Pablo and Dinesh. Dinesh is calling in from Zoom from New York. Pablo, thanks. You will be able to say a little bit more later. And some lightning talks, which we're going to start off with. William, Arnold, and Eshan, thank you for sharing some knowledge already up front. So yeah, without further ado, William, I want to call you to the stage.
Sure.
You're up. You're up.
Hello.
So, Alessandro would love you to use this.
Yeah, if you can.
Hello. I think no one here knows me. So I'm William. I'm Italian. I'm based here out of the Netherlands. I work at SUSE as a lead consulting architect. And I have recently been accepted as an ambassador for the Netherlands. I organize the KCD events with and the meetups with Alessandro, with Sevi, with Harold, that maybe left. I was there. That's it. So, who here knows about the tag observability from CNCF? I was hoping more than observability. Okay. Well, tag stands for Technical Advisory Group. In the CNCF, there are several technical advisory groups for app delivery. I think Alessandro is quite busy with it. Environmental sustainability, Pavel and myself are busy with it. And of course, observability. What does a technical advisory group do? They try to steer the requirements of end users and the features and the trajectory of builders, like are now here, like us at SUSE, like you guys at Datadog, of course. There are projects like OpenTelemetry, Prometheus, that are part of these type of tags, or Jaeger, and others. There are so many. So recently the tag has, I'm not sure how I do this. Oops. Okay. Recently the tag, I don't know, Alessandro, if you want to check there. So recently the tag has released a white paper. Name may be changed in what's in a name, right? So the blueprint or white paper goes through what is the nowadays state of observability. Where should we start, at least as a baseline for observability? What is open box monitoring? We are going away from the white box and black box monitoring. So we want to be in open and closed box monitoring. We want to add definitions into it. We want to add correlations into it as a part of the observability. And there are also working groups within the observability tag that are going into more specific body of work. And I'm glad that Arnaud is here with us to talk about it. The white paper has open issues. What it means? For the white paper, there are several companies and individuals of companies that are pitching into. One example is Mercedes. Mercedes has been has been pushing their needs into the tag and joining the tag meetings to get what they need into this white paper, into the efforts of the tag. And some of the working groups of the tag are a result of companies like Mercedes and companies like, I think, Airbus was involved as well. As I was saying, the white paper has some issues, meaning GitHub issues. Not that there is something broken in it, but there is something missing from it. So I'm working personally on observability best practices, and I would love that once my PR is pushed, somebody is not going to star it or is not going to accept it, but that somebody will challenge it and will improve it. In the pure spirit of open source, we want our staff challenged, reviewed and challenged. I suggest everybody to just have a look at the observability chapter and understand how it works. And maybe it's open to everybody. You can join every first and third Tuesday of the month. The tag meeting. There are several meetings. One is just the tag meeting. There are others that are WG meetings, work group meetings. I would suggest if you just want to understand what is that the tag does, just to show up. You can listen. It's a Zoom call. You can just listen and see if you're interested into going further and contributing. Additionally, like all the projects and meetings of CNCF, they're all open to everyone. Please have a look at the cncf.io/calendar, where you can put in your Google Calendar all the events of the CNCF, all the meetings of all the projects that you are interested in, you're using. Maybe that would start from again your brain for contributions as well. And that was all for me. Do you have any questions for me? No? All right. Thank you very much.
I think Arnold's next. Great. There you go. Or keep it. This should work as well.
Are you going?
There you go. I can if you want.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's okay.
Why not? Full service.
Thank you. So yeah, thanks for the invite. So it's really good to speak here, and I was told, and I was thinking like, what I'm going to speak about, and I thought directly, yes, I'm not going to talk about hotel because we all have hotel here. It's going to be heavily talked over here, but I think this subject, this working group about standardization query languages, can be very important for us for the future of observability, but also not only observability of your applications, but also security. So let's
Click.
yeah. So let's look why did they start this working group? So everybody knows this moment. They ask you, read the dashboard, and in the end, you're like, you have to get the whole chain. We have all these query languages. We have Atlas query language. We have Dynatrace. We have Elastic. We have SQL. We have getting a little bit cumbersome, and it really touches the productivity of the engineer, but also your colleagues to create these dashboards. And again, we already started to let's say, optimize things, the signals, but also the collection with open telemetry. But there was also a reason that, yeah, we have to standardize these queries, these query languages, because then we can accelerate, we can create dashboards even more smoothly. And the goal is really to make this experience better for the observability engineers and your colleagues. So important, I put in the link of the issue. This is created in April this year. It was KubeCon, Amsterdam. So at that time, they were discussing about this. And then this whole journey started. Next slide, yeah. And what are we then going to do? So this is what you see. When you create a dashboard, you get a shop with your data model, and you see all these query languages, all these products with all these things and all these queries like PromQL. In some cases, you have some time trace query language, or you have some other DSL that's there, or you need to go to a Custo query language. So, for example, I work at a job where I have 6 query languages to learn, and it's, yeah, I use them every 2 days. I touch the second plan and the 6th query language. So it's all about these functions, these attributes, and a model to standardize. So how are we going to do this? Who is going to do this? That's the working group.
Click.
So the working group, what I said, is community effort. So just as told us, William,
Yes.
I went to the group and I said, great, can I help? Because I have a lot of customers that have the same pain, and I want to help you solve it. So I just went to some calls and looked at some engineers from Microsoft, Dynatrace, showing how their query language was built. I could ask questions. We did a survey. And also guys like who kicked it off are important there, like Chris Larson. Chris is one of the founders, creators of the TSDB, and he's working at Netflix, and he's working on the Atlas query language. The main problem at Netflix is really about it's too complex. They have also other languages, and this one is also not helping their engineers to go forward. They also want to also. And then we have eBay and Apple that also joined in that same working group to improve it. So again, every 4 weeks we have this session with the working group, and I said we started with these surveys with various observability vendors. And it was always nice to see that every developer told their story and told them what did we learn, what were the pain points where we were walking into creating these query languages. Again, we're really focusing now on models like metrics and profiling, but we're also looking at other ways, because logging, for example, with OpenSearch, you also have PVL, so pipe processing languages. And that's also what Custo query language does for Microsoft. So we're now busy with describing the possible use cases. What kind of data goes through? How do we handle it? Do we only use it for alerting, dashboarding, or can we use it for observability? What semantics do we have to use? And to get there, we have a goal, and our goals are on that page below, to the left. But we also have an ID, and the goal is to have this recommendation document to be targeted till the end of first quarter next year. After that, we will start creating this language and building some examples around it, just like Hotel does. And we're still looking for companies with use cases, like what we see here. We see Picnic, we see Arnold, we see a lot of companies that maybe want to contribute. So please join, contribute, join the Slack, join the conversation, and yeah, maybe one time you can also help help here to code some next generation query language. And the last slide, I think.
Was not.
the end.
That's all you said. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
Why you don't choose log query, for example?
Yeah, LogQL, we went, this is also on the list. Why didn't you choose LogQL? We're just looking at the various pain points. LogQL is just one of the languages. We want to learn from all the best practices and all the effort from various companies, so from a Microsoft, from a Netflix, from all these languages, and then come to a universal query language that will get supported by all the vendors, and that's not directly, let's say, linked to a certain query language. Of course, they have certain things like, for example, PromQL was already said like, this is something we want to do, but again, we're going to look, what are the benefits of, for example, 5 queries? What are the benefits of certain functions? And how is it, let's say, coupled with certain data models? So hopefully that gives you a little bit an idea, but it's really about taking the whole community and not just picking one. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, son, please. Oh. Oh, we didn't see it. There's one more question. There was one more question. Sorry, I have to ask you back.
Oh.
Hey, son. We can hook you up already, but there's one more question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they did the same with Open Telemetry. Was also in hell, so I can tell you because I'm working for 20 years now within observability and APM tools. So I've created these auto collectors myself, and there wasn't in the beginning any vendor that didn't want to change. They all had their own unique selling point. But now you see that a lot of observability vendors are now connecting and using that because you can also see it as from a customer perspective. You can easily now shift engines of observability. And I do recognize what you say. Why? One, we don't want to standardize the technology, so the storage layer. We only want to define the semantics in the beginning, then give a model, and that doesn't be part of, for example, that doesn't say you have to use that data source or that type of SQL or NoSQL database. So, yeah? Yeah.
So you are seeing the change will be coming from the customer side, not the vendor side, right?
No, we are really looking from a customer side, and that's why we also, the use cases are really important for us. And for example, my customers where I work, I collect a lot of use cases from the banking industry and from security, and I put them also there.
That would be the right way
Yeah.
to change things.
So that's the way how we approach these things. And as Tim knows,
Yep.
I'm not standing here for Datadog. I'm standing here for the observability community, and I like Datadog. They're my friends. But I also do other tools. So that's also what you know. So that's.
He came in with an elastic bag. I said, man, what are you doing?
Yeah.
2 beers for you.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. And then it's on. Yes, it works.
I think I'm the only one who's something a little bit different other than when that's not. I'm an SRE with LeafPlan. Former LeafPlan, now it's renamed to Avens. Actually, it's a joint venture between LeafPlan and ALD Automotive. So what I'm going to talk about is about the strategy that we use mostly for Datadog, but is a strategy that we are using for our management in general in LeafPlan
repeat the question and then answer.
Yeah, okay, so you were asking about since Terraform HashiCorp in general changed the Terraform type of license, and they made a fork on it, which is called OpenTUFO. But we are still using Terraform as far as Datadog creates a provider for Terraform. But you can use TUFO, it doesn't matter. If we want to add something, we can use TUFO if we are interested in that license. It doesn't matter for us because it's a matter of creating that module and being compatible with both.
So I agree with you. The Repack model is like all or none, and it's really hard to manage. What we are looking now is like give specific team ability to manage only their specific service and not every other service. Is it done via Terraform or via OKR?
For some, that's the question I wanted to answer. That's why we had some shared Terraform config project. That's where we want to make sure that no one can get access to anyone else's thing. So, for example, team management is being managed here. But for OK rules, I'm planning on writing a blog post on it and just share a piece of code there and how we did it actually. Another question.
It was about OpenTofu, so scratch it.
Okay.
Exactly
good.
the same.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, thanks for the knowledge sharing this quick. Then we go to other way. All the way from Spain and from New York. So unmute Dinesh. I'll give this to you. You can click yourself, and we're gonna unmute this.
In the meantime, I have one announcement. I found this is a unique piece. It's a Kubernetes fanny pack. So, if you want to win it, you know where to call. Okay? Yes,
I
fanny
bought one
pack.
of these.
It's a real fanny pack. So if you're so brave to wear it, yes, you already got the t-shirt.
It's a great bag.
That is perfect.
Fanny pack.
Ce l'ho anche $1.
Pick it up.
Dinesh, can you speak and can we test if we can hear you?
Hey, hi. I can speak, but my video is, I don't think, is available.
That's perfect. We can hear you loud and clear. And can you just test your mic for us?
Yep, testing.
Can everyone hear them in the back? Great. So again, Pablo from our internal software engineering team all the way from Spain. Dinesh is calling in from New York. He could not make it in person, but they're co-hosting the session. Guys, thanks again for preparing this. And I will be walking around, or actually Tanya, you said you will be walking around with a microphone. Maybe if there's questions in between, feel free to ask away. Thanks. Good luck.
Not sure the clicker works though. Yep.
No, you have to focus. Put the focus on Zoom. Put the focus on the.
Okay. Yep. Works now. Yep. So as Tim said, I'm Pablo. I'm from Spain. I'm a senior software engineer.
And in the open source community, I'm a maintainer of all things open source collector. So that's the core library and all the components. And then I lead the systematic connections working group, which we'll talk a bit more about later. And yep, Dinesh, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dinesh. Nice to meet you remotely. I've been with Datadog for almost 4 years now. I was the first engineer on OpenTelemetry team. I worked along with Pablo on all the things OpenTelemetry at Datadog. In the community, I'm actually OpenTelemetry Go auto instrumentation approver. So that's pretty much.
Yep. Thanks, Ines. Right, so we're going to talk about how to use OpenTelemetry for metrics specifically. Yep, we'll show how to send into Datadog. But first, what is OpenTelemetry? Maybe something that some or most of you already know. So OpenTelemetry is a vendor-neutral open source observability framework. It defines a specification and the libraries and applications that you can use to instrument your services and your whole infrastructure. You can use it with almost any language. There's even a working group now trying to bake a library for COBOL. So yeah, almost anything you want. And it was created from the merger of two prior observability-related open source projects that are OpenCensus and OpenTracing. Right now, OpenTelemetry supports metrics, traces, and logs. OpenCensus and OpenTracing supported metrics and traces, respectively. And the idea is to unify observability and be able to correlate across the signals. There's also some work being done to support profiling, but that's in a very early stage. Why would you want to use OpenTelemetry, though? There are a number of reasons. The main one would be that you want to be to a vendor when it comes to your. So you instrument your services and your infrastructure once, and if you switch vendors or you switch to an open source solution or the other way around, you don't have to make changes on the code of your applications. But there's other benefits. So one would be also data flexibility. You are able to sample, drop, and enrich your data in any way. You can send data, maybe part of the data to one vendor and another. Then it is, or it's trying to be the cloud native standard. There's projects like Kubernetes and etc. that use it for instrumenting and producing traces. And we are actively trying to get more projects to use OpenTelemetry. So probably tools that you already use are or will be instrumented with OpenTelemetry, and you can leverage that out of the gate. And lastly, it's open source and fully customizable. Everything is built in a way where it's very modular, and you can create your own components, be it on your applications on at the SDK level or at the collector. One big focus is that you're able to build your custom distribution and have your own code with your own components there. So yeah, if you want to have full control over your observability framework, you can use OpenTelemetry for that. But yeah, we're going to talk about metrics. So metrics is a stable signal. It's supported in more than 10 languages. Here are a few. There's more. Still not COBOL, but yeah, common. By stable, I mean that the specification does not allow breaking. There may be some languages where the specification is not yet finalized, so you may see some breakage, but a lot of the popular ones, so Go, Python, I think Java as well, all have stable APIs and SDKs now. So you can use it and be safe that you're not going to have to address breaking changes. And then the metric signal was built with compatibility with existing protocols and solutions such as Prometheus, OpenCensus, and StatsD. So it's really easy to transform from one of these protocols to OpenTelemetry, mostly the other way around. And yep, we are going to see how to use them. So this would be a pipeline for, can I? Okay, no, I won't try to do that again. This would be a sample pipeline for sending metrics from a service up to, say, a backend like Datadog. There's 4 main parts here. One, so starting from left to right, you would have the API. The API defines the metrics instruments. That would be what you measure the stuff that you're interested in. Then the API would communicate with the SDK that kind of takes those measurements and exports them in some way. So you could have multiple exporters here. I'm trying to show like you could send some to a bucket somewhere, and some others could go to the collector or directly to a backend. For sending things, the OpenTelemetry project defines a protocol, which is called OTLP. We'll see a bit more details, but there's several options there, and you can also use it to store things in a file. And then we have the collector, which is application written in Go that you can use to receive telemetry. Could be in OTLP, could be in other protocols, then process it in some way. So for example, here you could call the Kubernetes API and try to enrich your data with some relevant context. And then you can export it to just about any backend that you want. And you could export to several of them. So it could be Datadog and Prometheus. Now we're going to be discussing the different parts in a bit more detail. So we are using Go for examples here, because it should be relatively simple to understand even if you don't know Go. And here we are seeing a very bare bones basic setup for just recording a single point on a single metric. There are two well-differentiated parts on the code, as I mentioned before, the API and the SDK. You can think about the SDK as the thing that applications manage, while the API would be for libraries. Here, for example, on the SDK, we are defining an exporter that uses the Observability protocol, and we tell them, like, you should fetch information from the API periodically. So by default, this would be every minute it will fetch the metrics. And then in the API, we get from the meter, we get an instrument. In this case, it's a histogram. There are several types that we'll refer later. And we can record points. Now, an important bit is that the API is independent from the SDK. So you could use even not use the OpenTelemetry SDK and use an alternative SDK that is compatible. You don't have to depend on the SDK. That's important. Say if you're doing mobile development or web development, you don't have to depend on that part. And for example, at Datadog, we are working on making the Datadog tracers in some languages compatible with the use the OpenTelemetry API. And then under the hood, the Datadog tracer will take that and produce traces for you. Now, in terms of the instruments, there's 4 groups of instruments. Each of these can have subtypes, but roughly we would have gauges, counters, up-down counters, and histograms. And the difference between them is in how you aggregate the measurements. For all of them, you pass them values, but gauges would use the last value. So they're useful for something that cannot be meaningfully aggregated by adding things, say the percentage of disk in use or the amount of memory that you use. Then counters and out-down counters count things. If it only goes up, then you use a counter. If it can go down, you use an up-down counter. And for histograms, you're interested in the distribution. There's 2 possible aggregations. If you're familiar with Prometheus, there's Prometheus-style histograms. There's also something called exponential histograms, which are also in Prometheus since recently, the native histograms, but are a bit more advanced and allow you to see things like percentiles and estimate them. Now, these instruments would generate data, for example, in OTLP. And here is a slightly simplified payload in OTLP JSON for the metric that we saw before, a histogram metric. And there's three flavors that you can have from OTLP. So these two, OTLP gRPC and the binary OTLP HTTP, would use protobuf for encoding, but you can also use JSON, which is mostly useful in things like browsers. And as I said, well, you can store it in a file with a stable format. And here you would have all the information about the metric. Here I'm focusing on the points, the specific points. So for histograms, you have some summary statistics and the bucket counts. But there's also things like where did this metric come from? Like what's the resource that it originated this, which are useful for correlation across different signal types. Now, how do these see that this data point is specific to history? But if you're sending a gate, for example, you're not going to have the minimum and the maximum. So there's different types of OTLP metrics. For gates, it's pretty simple. For counters and up-down counters, we have something called sum, which is basically something that you can aggregate by summing different points. And as I mentioned before, for histograms, we have two types: the Prometheus-style histograms, also called histogram, and the exponential histograms. We'll see later some examples from on data generated like this. Now, there's default aggregations. So, for example, for histograms, you get histograms, or there are certain features of the OTLP types that you would get. You can fully customize those. For example, here we are defining what's called an aggregation selector that allows you to say for this kind of instrument, histogram is very long, unintuitive name of aggregation based to exponential histogram. And these are just the defaults. This can look a bit daunting. There's simpler ways to configure this. You can configure this through environment variables as well. And we have a configuration working group in OpenTelemetry. Simplify this and make it so that you can have the same configuration in any instrumentation library. So in any language, you'll have to just load a file and that will work. And yeah, I mean, in the case of Datadog, exponential histograms are nice because we have a type called Datadog distributions that is pretty much the same, and so you can use it very intuitively in our application.
Dinesh is unmuted again, so if you need him, now he can talk again. He was not able to talk before.
Okay. Yeah, but I cannot pass the slide now.
He was talking. You should be able to speak.
Okay.
Dinesh?
Yeah, I can speak.
And can you control now?
No.
Okay.
Can I share my screen?
You have to focus on Zoom.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
You cannot control it?
No, I can't.
Oh.
Okay. Yep. So I'll now let Dinesh speak and show you how this all works in a practical example.
Pablo, is it possible for me to share my screen?
Yeah. Is it?
Try now?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you are able to see my screen now.
Yeah, it's a new share.
Cool. I can. Thanks, Pablo. So I want to show you like a real example of how to use all the metrics which Pablo introduced and see the setup. All of this code is available in the GitHub repo, which you are seeing. It's on my public GitHub repo.
Yeah, we are, because it's his browser.
Sorry?
Yep, go ahead, Dinesh. We can see your browser like search bar, but I guess that's okay.
Oh, anything wrong?
It's fine. Yeah. No, it's
Okay.
better.
It's better. Okay, cool. So the setup we had was very simple. We had a load generator and we had a Go service written. The service was pretty dumb. It had one endpoint called calendar, and it returns a random date in the 2023. And we configured OTLP gRPC exporter in the service, which sends OTLP data to the collector, and collector also had an exporter which sent the data to backend. So this was our simple setup, and I will walk you through the setups we have and how the data looks on the Datadog itself. First was SDK setup. I think this is very much similar to what Pablo was showing earlier. So we configure the exporter. Here we set insert queue to true because we are not running any TLS service in the collector
We're still
itself.
seeing the setup slide though, Dinesh.
Sorry?
We're still seeing the setup slide, the one with the diagram.
Oops. Sorry.
Yep, no.
Okay. Okay. Is it now you're able to see SDK setup?
Yes.
Sorry, all the issues with the remote, I guess. So here we are seeing the SDK setup, which is very similar to what Pablo was showing earlier. The first, we configure an exporter, which is a gRPC exporter. One thing we note is we do like insecure to be true because we are not running in TSL for the collector. Second is a reader, and here you can configure the interval at which you want to send the metrics from the service. The third is a provider. Provider is the one which actually creates you ability to create instruments. Apart from that, there is other things you can do, like you can define the resource. Here I have set the resource, which is not shown here. How to set a resource, I will come to that. But you can customize what protocol to send, what interval you to send, and how to create the meter provider. Once you create a meter provider, you are able to get the meters or instruments out of it. So these are two examples. We have one for latency and one for memory gauge. So instruments can be synchronous or asynchronous. The latency, which is an histogram, is an example of synchronous one, and the memory gauge is an asynchronous gauge. So in two good, like in a synchronous one, you don't have a callback. In a asynchronous, there is a callback, and also we define units. So unit follows what we call as unified universal unified code, UCUM standard. So you can define either in that standard like metric with unit in any instrument you create. In here we have latency and memory gauge, which are two very simple examples of what we can think of. The second, this is again a simple the actual code for the handler itself, which is again not much interesting, but what we have is an active users, which we are incrementing and like decrementing in the deferred function, and you see how we are able to record the latency, which was created as an histogram task.duration, and we are recording it as a like the duration of the how much handler takes. So what OpenTelemetry did was OpenTelemetry did introduce a concept of semantic convention where all of them have standard attributes. So it's a the benefit of using attributes is semantic convention is the following is common naming scheme across languages, code bases, libraries, and platforms. So this enables us like you need not think how do I define this in Java versus how do I define this in Go. It's all it is going to be the same. And attributes are like a key value pair which are present on every signal and a resource. This slide shows few examples of semantic resource attributes. Like service.name is one of the common ones, which maps to the like a logical service name. There are ways to configure the semantic conventions for an SDK. That's how you do via environment variables. So here we are seeing the two environment variables, which are most common ones. One is hotel service name and hotel resource attributes. here we have defined a couple of resource attributes. So when it comes to semantic conventions, what happens is Datadog also has its own semantic conventions. So there is a mapping between OpenTelemetry semantic conventions and Datadog semantic conventions. This has been documented in our website. You're still able to see my screen, right?
Yep.
So like there is a mapping. So the example we had was the deployment environment. It maps to the Datadog convention called ENV. So that's a universal mapping, and that's how semantic conventions are being used at both the places. Now coming to collector, like the core part of OpenTelemetry itself. So let me share the slides again. Collector has three parts, which is like receivers, processors, and exporters. So here we are showing like two pipelines, one for metrics and one for traces. Both receivers is where how the data gets into the collector. Like Pablo was saying, it can be in an OTLP format, it can be any other format, like you can receiver or any other protocol. And processors are like where you transform the OTLP data. So here we have defined two processors. One is resource detection. Resource detection enables you to do more like add the environment tags or add the host level tags to your signals. An exporter is what we have as a Datadog exporter that sends the OTLP data to our Datadog backend. So now I would like to show like real example of like all this setup. This is all great. Now how it actually looks like in our UI. So we had like the traces pipeline sending like a traces. So once you go into service page, you should see the service. So this is where like ENV, the hotel experiment. So whatever we set as a deployment.environment gets converted into ENV flag in the Datadog. And you can go into service. The errors for timers that was intentional. We really wanted to show like errors kind of a thing, but it's we are getting continuous hits and we are able to do that. For the we created a dashboard of all the metrics we created. So the interesting parts are these metrics which we have been speaking about so far. The first one is number of hits. Again, it's literally the counter metric, which is it's a monotonic increasing. We have shown it as a rate here. So we are getting like a 5 requests per second. What a resource detection process enables us is to add slice the data. So in the second graph, we are able to slice the data by host, where you are able to see the request each host is receiving. We should be able to do it by any other resource attribute, like you can do it by k8s.pod name or k8s by like any other resource attribute which is available. We should be able to do that. That's just and this is the memory gauge which we presented. Latency is an interesting one. So this is sent as a histogram, and we are now have the average one and also P91, 99. The way we are able to calculate the percentiles, like Datadog has this configuration on the metrics summary page where you can go and configure the as duration. You can configure the percentiles. Once you turn on the percentiles for every histogram, you should be able to look at P99 and other metrics as well. So in this case, you have average duration and also P99 duration for this service. That's pretty much it on the demo side. Yeah, I will hand over to Pablo again.
Okay, thanks.
Should I continue sharing the screen?
Yeah.
This the demo and then we're here, right?
Yep. This one is all right. Yep. So thanks Ines for the demo. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much a end-to-end pipeline for metrics. And now I wanted to briefly mention a few things for the future of OpenTelemetry. Yeah, this is not the only thing that is happening, to be clear. One is, well, more languages with metric support and more languages with stable metric support. So we have a number of customers, for example, that are early users of OpenTelemetry, having to upgrade the libraries and deal with breaking changes on the how do you use the SDK or how do you define instruments. This is getting slowly better as we stabilize things. And also, yeah, we are seeing a lot of interest from just about any language. Just recently, I debugged a problem from someone sending OpenTelemetry metrics from OCaml. So yeah, anything goes. Then another big thing that we are working on is stable semantic conventions. So same as with the specification for metrics, we have not yet figured out. We are working on that. There will probably be an announcement at KubeCon America about this. I myself am working on the stability of the ones related to systems. So things like measure the things related to your CPU. We want to get some names that not just OpenTelemetry, but all the observability projects out there to refer to these things. And lastly, I am also personally working on getting a stable collector. And we are starting with getting the libraries that we use to define receivers, processors, and exporters that Dinesh was talking about really stable. And that will allow for a richer ecosystem of components that you can use for just process your data in any way that you want. Yep, that's about it. Thank you. Sure. Do you have a mic for? Okay. Okay, let's wait for the mic.
Thank you, Pablo. It was brilliant. When you just said that you are responsible for the system metrics.
Mm-hmm.
In the semantics, are you guys working also on the and you? Are you guys working also exporting also RAPL from CPUs?
Sorry, can you repeat?
RAPL metrics from CPU.
So right now the set of metrics is very basic. I don't think we have anything related to this.
Okay. Can you work on it? It has for the tag environmental sustainability. We are very much interested in the RAPL metrics to calculate how green CNCF projects are. Well, we start with those. And we need collectors, and we need semantics and these type of things.
If you come talk to me later or file an issue on the semantic, we can work on it. Right now, we are focused on the ones that already exist, trying to make them stable and have, general guidelines on how new metrics should look like what the namespace is. But I'm sure that seems like something important. So cool. Yep, just come talk to me or file an issue.
Yep.
Yep, thanks.
Amazing. Mike? It's okay. I've got quite a lot for it. 15 minutes break, guys. Again, if you need to go up there. Like this. Now you can talk. You want him to talk.
Does it work? Test? Yeah? Does it work? First time I'm using any AV here in this office, so
Okay.
I need my man. Yeah, it works.
Is this one my bit?
Yeah, it does work.
I think
It's
that's
not mine, so. Can I get? Can I ask everyone to find their seat again? We're gonna get started. So I hope everyone is enjoying the evening so far. Some good drinks, some more snacks coming in the end. But before we go there, I want to, yeah, yeah, being visible. Ah, there you go. That's my other friend. So guys, next up we have Picnic. We as Datadog like to think that we are really at the forefront as a cloud native observability platform. So we really like it when other really front runners are also adopting us. So that's just cool. These guys, we are expecting them to really stress test us and push the boundaries, which we love. So today we have Phil and we have Harkit. And actually I have one question before you guys started. Days like these, always when I see your little cars driving around, I was like, these guys are gonna fall over in the corners. How is it with wind?
Yeah.
These little trucks.
Can you hear me? Is it good? Yeah. So around Code Oranje is where we need to start canceling. So in the west of the Netherlands, we had to cancel a lot in the Randstad today because these cars, they're a little bit better than they used to be, as in the G4s, G6s, electric-powered vehicles that we have, and the G4s were a lot thinner and squeakier and could be blown over with a slight hard breath or a cough. G6s are a little bit stronger, but yes, there's still we can still improve.
Nice. This is some great insider information, guys. All right. Floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Leon. Yeah, so today, observability journey that we've taken, let's say, in the last 12 months. I'm going to start off telling you a little bit about the strategy, why we chose to now make a focused effort on improving observability at Picnic. And then Harkit's basically going to tell you how we actually did that with Datadog. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who Picnic are. So maybe a raise of hands who actually knows what Picnic does. OK, cool. So quite a lot of you. Well, basically, to recap, we're an online-only supermarket. We deliver groceries to your home on time and also for the lowest price guarantee. And of course, how we do that is, well, we have online mobile app. We build also many internal products, supply chain management systems, inventory management systems, warehouse management systems, all to make this happen, which is to provide Picnic as a service to hundreds of cities through the Netherlands, Germany, France. We have thousands of suppliers which we get our products from, even ourselves. So you can see Picnic Half Full Milk is also one of our own private label brands. So we're introducing more products. We have, therefore, tens of thousands of products. Many of them are of our own. And we're doing hundreds of thousands of deliveries a week to millions of customers. And to make all of this happen, basically, we need all of these systems, as I mentioned, on the e-commerce side, all the way to the data analytics and the supply chain side. And all of these systems, of course, we need to monitor and make observable, and also to operate at a very high level to make sure that we get all those groceries to you. And how do we work? Basically, from a supply chain perspective, we have direct deliveries from our suppliers to our warehouses. We deliver them with our electric-powered vehicles. Let's hope that those wind turbines don't blow this EPV over. But then all the customers are using Picnic app and are ordering multiple times a week. But let's get to the important part, let's say, about our observability mission. So we wanted to ensure in 2023 that all developers in Picnic could use the best-in-class tools, processes, and practices to maintain and improve service levels. And ideally, we wanted to do this to reduce two things: time spent in incidents, the actual impact that an incident can have in terms of time, how much time is lost, that developers are losing to resolving incidents, but also the actual impact of the incident itself. So how many customers suffered as a result of an incident in our e-commerce platform or in our warehouse, and how many missed deliveries there were and how much cost was associated with that. So rather than just talk about cost at a high level, well, I can't give you the exact numbers here, but these are the time spans, let's say, of where Picnic developers were spending time throughout the year of 2023. In the beginning, so you see they're broken down into two: mean time to acknowledgement. So how long does it take for developers at Picnic, on average, to acknowledge an incident that is of a critical severity? And how much time does it take for them also, on an average, to resolve the incident? So you see what we did at the beginning of the year was focus a lot on process improvements to reduce this gray buckets, which is the time it takes for even just acknowledging that an incident has occurred. And then what remains there is also a highly variable amount of time, which it takes to resolve incidents on an average. basis. So, for example, in the summer, you saw that it went up to n number of minutes on average. And we have the remaining periods of the year also to try and reduce this further. But in the first half of the year, this is primarily focused on process and improving the way in which we handle incidents, the tools that we already had. But there were still things missing, and this is also one of the reasons why we were looking for a better observability platform. And as I mentioned, the other thing we wanted to reduce is costs as well. So we also can't tell you the exact numbers here, but if you take all of our tech costs, these are all the costs associated to Picnic with regards to running AWS, MongoDB, Kafka, RabbitMQ, everything that we do in tech, how much does that all cost? Well, that's the gray line. And then the red line is basically everything that we pay on top of that in terms of incidents. So how much impact do incidents have? Well, they have roughly 10% on top of our tech costs, which is actually relatively high, I would say. We pay this amount to make sure everything runs, and when it doesn't run, this is what happens. We pay an extra 10% on top. So there's obviously areas to improve there, and if you look at it from a financial perspective, you really see that it is time and it's worth the effort to really make substantial improvements to the way in which we handle incidents, resolve them, debug them, and all the tools and the processes that go into optimizing that. So at a high level, we decided, well, we had many different areas, let's say, that we could actually focus on to make improvements. But these are the key ones that we identified. Those are on the process side, standardization, consolidation, hosting, and also vendor lock as well. These are basically the shifts that we felt we needed to make in order to get to make substantial improvements and to build up a holistic observability strategy. So on the process side, before, teams were all in Picnic, all 350 developers were basically left with their own devices to decide which tools do they use. We had a few tools that the teams were using, like our APM platform, but there was no standardization there, and there was no process, there was no guidance to use them. And we wanted to really move this to become a first-class citizen, and also not only just leave it up to teams indeed to figure out how to use them, but also provide to go with it. And then on the consolidation side, well, there's been a lot of talk about going for a single pane of glass solution for your observability platform. We have other providers for logging, and we really were looking at traces and metrics and how do we, in a holistic way, get APM for the various different roles that we have at Picnic, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But rather than have a space of, let's say, 20 observability tools, we wanted to reduce that to a smaller set, but not have a single tool that does everything. On the hosting side, we also wanted to make a shift to a little bit to software as a service and not to self-host observability tooling. And on the vendor lock, we also wanted to move forward a little bit with adopting open standards. So on the process side and the standardization, we looked into a few different areas we wanted to make a step change. So we wanted to introduce service level objectives for all teams to actually make clear, let's say, what can we expect from all of these 40 product teams and the 1,000 or so different deployments that we operate in terms of how they should be performing on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis. We also wanted to adopt industry standard processes. So during incident management, to, let's say, get our shit together a little bit better and to use some of the industry standard practices like Google SRE's handbook for incident management, adopting incident roles, so making it very clear during incidents who is responsible for being communicator, for the leader who's part of the incident team, et cetera, et cetera. And to also do things like postmortems, to file incident reports, to create follow-ups, and to address those follow-ups. We want to make it data-driven, so I gave a little bit of an idea of what kind of data we now track with regards to incidents cost and also the mean times that we spend in incidents. And we also wanted to standardize the collection of all this data as well. And we also want to adopt the platform approach. Now, Pavel and Ahakit will tell you more about that. And if you want to understand a little bit more about the data-driven side, then you can talk to Tico, just to give you an idea of who to actually talk to. On the third side, so we wanted to consolidate. So as I mentioned before, we have quite a broad stack of observability tools in Picnic, ranging from Grafana to TimescaleDB, Sentry to Datadog, our previous APM provider we've now moved away from. Prometheus, Rapid7, and also Scalar that we use for logging. And what we wanted to try and do is consolidate these such that each role in Picnic has one and at most two tools that they need to use. And of course, there's also arguments for saying, well, we should get rid of logging and actually make it all one tool for each role, such that analysts only have one entry point, front-end developers only have one entry point, back-end developers have one entry point, where they need to use the various different observability, debugging, and profiling tools that are relevant for their role. So this is the aim. It's not a rule, so it's a target. So we're slowly moving towards this, this kind of diagram. Well, software as a service, we're in the business of delivering groceries and not telemetry data, so it doesn't really make sense for us to invest too heavily in building our own observability platform. But just in general, the total cost of owning such a tool, for us, it always makes sense in at a company our scale to adopt a software as a service tool. And number 5, I think for me, this is one of the most interesting topics. We've also had Pablo and also Arnold talk about this today, which is around vendor lock-in, and is one of the primary reasons for adopting open standards like OpenTelemetry. And in the strategy itself, I wanted to split it off into 2 different angles. So on one side, you have the protocol. This is basically the way in which data is collected, telemetry data is collected from applications and then exposed to one of the backends, as Pablo talked about. But we also have the platform as well, which is quite a nice link. I think Arnold was talking about these general purpose query languages and basically figuring out a way to consolidate those into a single one, so you don't have NRQL and LogQL and PromQL, but we have a single standard. This is actually where I would see the shift up towards open standards for the platform itself, which is also something that we are very interested in because we want to make the switching costs low as well for the platform itself. But what is very clear is there's a lot of work going into OpenTelemetry. For metrics, we use Micrometer already, but we also have open metrics for Python services in Picnic. For traces as well, we're using OpenTelemetry. And for logging, we've recently also been looking into OpenTelemetry. This is a little bit an earlier stage than FluentD is. But our general strategy is to, with the platforms that we already use, to start adopting the open standards to reduce switching costs. And I think for us, what does an open standard mean? Well, it basically means something that is adopted by CNCF. Or is so clear that it's an open standard that it's adopted by so many other vendors that. So the last slide I want to leave you with is basically, well, once we make a decision in Picnic, we want to move towards a tool like Datadog, and Harkeet will tell you a lot more about that now. We do so pretty quickly. So even just within 4 weeks, we had 95% adoption of Datadog. So we managed to switch over from our previous vendor very quickly. That is 350 engineers and 40 product teams and 1,500 deployments that we managed to switch over, which Harkeet will now tell you more about. But what I do recommend is that you also check out this first link, which is a blog post from Pavel and Harkeet that we published this week, telling you also more about the switch and why we made it. And also the last one, of course, is if you're interested in what we're doing at Picnic, then please do apply. That's everything from me. I'm going to now hand over. Mute.
Yeah. No, we can leave. Actually, we have T-shirts to give away, so everyone who has an interesting question. I hope this stays like this.
Yeah.
How do you
Just keep an eye on it.
or do you have a?
So the question is, how do we measure switching costs? And do we have?
Is there a way to measure?
So there was one slide I actually missed out, which was a very nice model from Gregor Hope. It's on the which talks about switching costs and how to measure it and how to also, he basically uses a nice analogy to financial options. So the price that you basically have an option, or that you buy an option, which basically is your, in parts, your switching cost, and how to know when it's worth, for example, introducing things like open telemetry standards, whether it's useful to apply Hibernate, for example, if you're interacting with a database. It gives you, of course, it reduces the cost of switching. However, the part I think is more interesting is to know how much do you avoid getting locked into vendor-specific technologies, and at what cost does that actually incur to you if you don't utilize them. So there's also an opportunity cost associated with that as well, which I don't think there's a good answer to how to quantify them. What I do really like is the initiatives around the query language standardization, other things that we can basically make more industry standard in these platforms. Also reduces the worry quite as much about the problem. We basically then choose Datadog because Datadog is the best, let's say, vendor in terms of the price in which they can process the telemetry data, how fast, how stable, the uptime they can provide us, and some other kind of AI tools and fanciness that they can also bring, versus maybe another competitor.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you, in the operational, the ops excellence vision of Picnic, do you think that single pane of glasses are really something that should be there?
So it is one of the benefits, of course, of OpenTelemetry is having the signals also being able to correlate between logs and between metrics and traces. And now we basically, in Picnic, we do this ourselves. We have generated trace IDs that we share across the three. It would make things easier if we certainly had adopted an open standard and then providers that on the logging side and also the APM side can correlate across them. But then you still have two tools that you need to take from here to there and then compare.
So I think that, so because in the industry, I'm asking this question, which is because single pane of glass has a meaning. It's diametrically opposite. What you're saying is having the data that talk to each other, ID with each other, correlate with each other. Whereas a single pane of glass is the depth of an engineer. So.
Yeah. No, so it's, well, I guess it's a single pane of glass in the sense that it's a single pane stack, but then for me, it can be the compromise of the best-in-class tool that you would have for whether that's logging or for tracing or for profiling or for debugging, breakpoint debugging, where there's maybe better vendors out there, and the cost really is whether having to switch between the tools in a debugging session, how high is that compared to just having everything in one? And then, yeah, then you have the lowest common denominator, indeed.
I want to build up on that with, oh, sorry.
He was, this guy's first.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you back to the slide with the mean TTR.
This one.
Yeah. So I noticed that you've raised Datadog at 100% in December, but you also had an increase. Is that a coincidence or not?
You mean from P9 to P10? Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so Datadog, we adopted Datadog in P9, and then basically in P10, what happened is that we increased our mean time to resolution. Good observation.
You better have a good answer now.
Well, these guys, Pavel and Harkeet, were so hard on working on the migration. Basically, we had to put Picnic operations on pause. But at P11, I think this is where it gets really good. But no, it's, to be quite honest, what goes into these is really just the complexity of new software that we're building. So right now we're building, well, an automated fulfillment center in Utrecht, which is going to handle, or is handling basically the entire volume that the Netherlands was doing beforehand, just in one site. There's so much automation there, and there's so many new concepts and new challenges that means that some of these big spikes are just associated to debugging very, very, very long issues. So there's not really a nice percentile distribution here. It's just so that in each one of these, there's typically one or two just very long incidents that occurred. So if I'd taken the 95 percentile, it'd probably look a little bit normal. But in general, we want to look at it like this because just the cost is incurred by the time that you spent in incident, the average time you spent in the incident.
To add on that, P8 and P9 are summer holidays, so that's proper time, which is usually very quiet, also in terms of incidents, because a lot less new products push in practice. If you compare it earlier from P10 to the earlier, that's quite still in line.
Warmer competition from
Exactly. Yes, then I'm, okay, one more.
And that question really matters. When you have not how you are planning on getting some metrics, Dora metrics now, how you are gonna have business process, business monitoring, another solution, and you have tracing and APM and service versioning probably with tracing in Datadog. How you're planning to do that?
So this is really, you mean on the entire, so the entire set of DORA metrics, you're wondering across all these tools, how do we then measure, like, okay, we have a different tool for CI and for CD and then for, yeah. Building it in-house, building the aggregation in-house. We want to do this, all of this basically in our data warehouse requires that you build ETL extraction processes from all of these tools, load them into the data warehouse, or you have event streams. So if they support also a Kafka bus, for example, when it comes to Datadog, and if we, if you really want to measure the time it takes for us to acknowledge a metric, acknowledge an alert. By the way, all of this is currently done for our own in-house built incident management tool, where we also collect the data and load it into the data warehouse and analyze that. So once it's in the data warehouse, then basically it's in a standardized format that we can join it across multiple different data sources. But the cost is basically that we need to build all the extraction processes.
Have you already considered
Of whether we go for a single tool for everything or whether we, good question. Not in particular, no. We've made them as relatively isolated decisions so far. Yeah, I think there's definitely something that's worth looking into. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe one last one, and then we move on.
Sure. So you mentioned you have 95%.
Yeah.
How did you really pull that off? Do you have standardized building blocks for running on monitoring?
Maybe this is a perfect segue. So the question basically to set up Harkeet's presentation is, well, we have 95% after 4 weeks. And Harkeet's going to tell you about that right now. Thanks.
Okay, hey everyone. My name is Harkeet. I'm infra engineer at Picnic, and I'm going to talk about how we implemented the shift in our strategy and our partnership and support with Datadog.
Actually, people in our own team, when I showed the pictures, were like, is this just photoshopped or is this real?
That's AI generated, DALL-E. Sorry.
You have a team for every
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Iterating on what Phil just showed about the themes of our strategy, we're going to see how Datadog fits into that strategy and how we are thinking Datadog as a platform where we can fulfill our the strategy themes. So starting with processes, we want to make observability platform as a critical part of our developer. We want to do mandatory inclusions of SLOs that would redefine the definition of done for the developers, and starting with standardization. And this is something that we're going to dig more deep into it, starting with ease of instrumentation. All the services that are existing into our environment and the new services that comes in should have seamless instrumentation, and there should not be an effort that would be required from developers to see the metrics on the platform, and also to embrace observability as code, management of our observability objects as code. Then consolidation, consolidating all our backend developers, all our platform into one a single platform. This is something is a ongoing conversation, and we are thinking more starting with APM, and then we're gonna see how we can embed other backend platforms into platform. And then hosting, and of course, Datadog is a SaaS platform. If it gone this far with them, and then vendor lock, like we have seen in our in the previous presentation by Pablo, Datadog embraces open standards. Yeah, they promote open standards and sees the same future as us. And today we're gonna focus more on the standardization part. And when I say standardization, what exactly do I mean? We're going to talk about full visibility, making our developers get full visibility into the platform, make available to them that is required from all the layers, from their services end, from their from the backend end, from the cloud end, and from the database side. So everything that is required for them to measure the performance should be available to them. And second, about seamless instrumentation. So there should not be any code change required. Everything should be auto instrumented. So we have built our architecture in such a way that it's pretty easy for developers to just get the visibility for developers into their services, and then embrace observability as code, management of the objects in a standardized manner and in a consistent manner, and having the review process of what changes that has been done to the platform. And how we have achieved that 90% adoption rate. So we have two main application languages in our environment, which is Java and Python. We are using admission controller for instrumenting our Java services, and we use hotel operator for instrumenting our Python application. And you can see that both of them are pretty similar in terms of how they get instrumented. I'm going to dig more deep into each of these technologies in the next slides. But that's a full architecture that we have, and how we instrument our application in our clusters and send the traces or telemetry data to Datadog. Starting with Java applications, like I mentioned, built into the Datadog cluster. We use some labels and some annotations when the pod gets fitted into the cluster. The admission controllers look into that, and using mutating webhook, it injects the Java instrumentation library through init container, and the application starts sending the telemetry data to Datadog. So it's just with Datadog enabled label, and with annotations which tells which language library it needs to. Similarly, for auto instrumentation, we decided to go with hotel operator, and specifically we are using the instrumentation CRDs to inject the library. Okay, so same for hotel operator. It also looks at annotations which tells about which language library it needs to check on. In this case, those would be the Python library, and since we are not using a collector in this case, directly ingesting the data into Datadog agent, and then it's been sent to Datadog platform. And since Datadog agent accepts OLTP protocols, it can directly ingest the data through agent and then send it to the backend platform. Okay, next. So we at Picnic, we are hardcore a Terraform shop. We use Terraform a lot, and we want to use the same principles of infrastructure as a code and implement the same with observabilities. And so currently we are using a Datadog Terraform providers to manage our observability objects, dashboards, SLO, and the notification that the developers can create. And yeah, currently we support dashboards, monitors, SLOs, and notifications to be created through Terraform. And I'm going to show the end-to-end pipeline how that looks like. And also we plan to add more objects into it that can be leveraged as observability as code. Okay, so how does it look? The developers create an observability directory in their repos, add the objects for monitors, for dashboards, and some of these can be standard templates that we provide as an example, as a good starting point. And some of these can also be something very specific to a team that they have created on the Datadog UI and then exported that as a JSON and then manage to their repos. And we use TeamCity as a platform. We have added a observability build into our DSL, and developers can just enable that build from the TeamCity Kotlin project, and then these objects can be directly from the repos. And how the pipeline looks like. So like I said, developers can add the objects into the observability folder, and whenever there's any changes or something new that has been added into this directory, and when you open a PR, that would trigger the observability build, which runs a Datadog CD image that for a non-default branch would do a Terraform plan, would show what you are creating on the Datadog side, show that plan in your PR, and when everything looks good, you can merge that PR, and once you merge that PR from the default branch, it triggers the observability build again, runs the Datadog CD image, and this time it would do a Terraform apply, create the resources on the Datadog side, and then save the state into S3. Okay, so what our observability dreams, what we have implemented so far, and what more we envision to use this platform forms, like Phil mentioned and like we mentioned before, we wanna invest heavily on the SLOs. SLO side, we wanna include them into our developer workflow, and we wanna not just treat that as an afterthought or a separate process, but we wanna include that into our developers' roles and ensure that each and every feature that goes through should have an SLO linked to it. And also we want to use observability as an insight. So we have like a lot of distributed systems. We can use observability to dig deep into those systems and try to find out the performance bottleneck, and then use that to divide ownership. And you also use that as a feedback loop, understand the performance of your code, where it's lagging, revisit that, improve on it, and then just give the best possible kind of usage to our end users and to whole platform in general. Yeah, that's it. And again, segue to the blog and part of career website. Yeah. Thanks.
Question still a bit stands. Did you really developers have to redeploy their code? The annotations
Okay, so the question is, does our developers have to do anything to get the visibility on the Datadog side? So we have all our developers use standard Helm charts to deploy their applications, and we have created standard modules for each language. For Java, we have Java support modules, and for Python, we have Python support modules. So we have embedded this instrumentation into our Helm charts and into a support module. So as soon as you bump up the version of your Helm chart, you would automatically be instrumented, and you would start sending your telemetry data. It's just a matter of going to the version that supports sending telemetry data to. Yeah, and we just influence our developers to just go to that version of Helm chart, and then they were able to.
The monitors and all those things.
Yeah, that's opt-in, and we standard templates, reference example, which should be as a bare minimum alerting that you should have for your services, and then they can just copy paste, tweak them for the services, and they would have. Yeah.
Sorry, that's on. Okay, maybe this. Yeah, that's better. So, what's your plan to standardize the way they are developing or they are adding stuff to Datadog? So monitors. You added JSON dashboard. So what are your mechanism to make sure that they are up to a level and have enough observability, first of all, and second, they are following enough standards?
Okay, so we don't want to strict everyone to, I mean, in terms of dashboard, everyone to a certain standards, since we want to give our developers free hand, because each service would have different metrics or data points that they wanna that they can use to get visibility. But at a bare minimum, we want to have certain consistent tagging, or at least that they can use to navigate data points and create facets for that dashboard. So I think that's a bare minimum we want to start with. But yeah, we don't want to have one standard that fits everyone. There can be standard. There can be standard dashboards that can be common for many services, and that can be dynamic in terms of you switch your services and you see same metrics for.
And then my question is that is bare minimum, or are you gonna force that standard?
So that's something that that we have added into our modules, those unified tags for Datadog, the service name, the environment, the market in our case is present for all the services.
I have one question about the SLOs. SLOs can sometimes be difficult for a developer to understand what it is. Sometimes they think it's a KPI for a manager to hit again. And how are you going to engage that with the development teams that say, yeah, how do you help them to guide them through the process to get good SLIs for profiling well unique, so getting the objectives correctly monitored?
Yeah, so that's something that we are trying to figure out what can be the standard SLOs, but at a very good starting point is something uptime of the applications that we're using syntactic monitoring to get at least those uptime SLOs, get error budgets set for their services, and then kind of aggregates there and what extra can be used as an SLO. So some of these are kind of specific for each services. We are thinking of sending some custom metrics to Datadog and create SLOs from there.
Hi. I think that 95% adoption enabled deployment here.
Sorry,
you measure adoption of Datadog by deployments that enable it in our role here.
That's right. Yeah.
And you have also old system here on old metrics. Your previous system, is it still there in house?
No, so we...
So it means that 95% don't use old system.
So yeah, so now we have 100% adoption rate for Datadog. The old system has already been sunset, and now all our developers are using Datadog as primary source for.
Great, thank you.
After Bart, one more question because he's holding you up for food and drinks.
Well, really quick, because this question was asked before. What's your stance on, because you're using Terraform, what's your stance on Terraform versus OpenTelemetry?
So we use Hotel, we use Terraform a lot, and we just started using Hotel, and we use this platform which is called Spacecliff, which is kind of a direct competitor to Terraform Cloud, and they're also affected by this Terraform licensing. But I think what providers that we have and what modular what support modules that we have for Terraform, I think for now we would still be using Terraform, and we just started experimenting with Hotel, and we were just discussing we have some good ideas. What are things that we can use to Hotel and have upgrades open sign, but I guess for foreseeable future we will still be using Terraform.
I have a question. It's split in two, so
cheeky.
Yeah, exactly. Go on to the second last slide. Yeah, that's the No, that's exactly. No, not the two guys. So, SLOs and SLIs, right? At least I'm a little bit of a purist, and I believe that you can only provide an indicator and an objective if you have tested the failure of the object. So that's why I split in two parts. So how are you are you injecting failures into your platforms, into your services, and regardless if you are or you're not, are you measuring saturation of your services in your platform so that you can get SLOs and SLIs?
Just as I want you to get some help, maybe Phil also wants to join in and answering these questions.
So the first part I answered, the second part I didn't, but the first part we don't use any kind of chaos engineering technique at the moment. We do want to look into it for testing the resilience of applications and then how indeed how accurate our, well, I think some teams are dealing enough with SLO violations that they're able to see that they work and they need to tweak them on a regular basis, whilst also providing fixes and solutions for them. Others indeed put an SLO in place and we haven't seen a violation for a few months. What we want to do is make sure that we can trigger behavior that actually creates the violation. We can be certain that the SLO is actually properly representing degradation that affects end users. And that's the goal. The second part of the question
the second part is regarding the objective. I can establish my objective if I know where I fail, and then I can establish an indicator that I can use against that objective. So when we don't test failure, as I said, I'm a purist and I'm challenging. So when we don't get to that indicator, when we don't fail, we can't set an objective. We can just say, I want to be 97.99% available, 99.99% available, or the percentile has to be this, but I don't have the indicators that are realistic to what my service.
Are you talking about a benchmark and improving your benchmark over time?
I'm talking about failing, not necessarily chaotically, but systematically, but failing a service and understanding the failure, accepting the failure, and setting that SLO.
Yeah, so how we start with SLOs is more of a tabletop exercise. What do we in an ideal world actually want to deliver for our end users or the business or whatever business process? And the teams that are building SLOs are working together very closely with their business counterparts to create, like, okay, if I'm a user of your system, but I'm a user of the customer service solution that we build in-house, then how fast do I expect to create or close a ticket in Salesforce, for example? Those things we want to measure and say this is ideally how fast we want to do it, so that operations can run this quickly, and this is how many issues we can handle on a day-to-day basis. And then we go into indeed the indicators behind that and figuring out how do we even start measuring. So it's more, I guess it's the other way around, rather than taking indicators that we have and figuring out what's the best way we can assert that our application is running healthily, is to start from the business process or from the end user using the mobile app, like more on a tabletop exercise. So there's a gap there that you need to close, and you also need to, but we regardless still need to validate that it actually is correct with things like fault injection.
Thank you.
All right, with that comment, if you're okay with that, because I think it was in your presentation already. So I dearly want to thank Picnic and of course the guys from the Lightning Talks, so Arnold, Julia, Mesa, for contributing to this night, and of course you guys with your questions as well. We'll continue here until 9:30-ish. We have some bites, we have some more drinks. Some of our colleagues went to the other line around the corner twice to refill the beers. So thanks lots for your contribution. Picnic does not deliver within 30 minutes just yet, so we have to get creative. Next time. So, guys, again, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this night. Feel free to come up to us, give us some feedback. Thank you as well for, of course, the CNCF ambassadors to come here. And Alessandro, maybe a final word.
Yes. If you want to speak or host next meetup in 2024, you can reach me or William, and please get your ticket for TCCU. It's also a discount.